hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode and a breaking episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest content and all the latest news on the New York Jets. And just when we thought the biggest news of the day for the New York Jets would be Jermaine Johnson agreeing on a fifth-year option, starting to get some clips from camp. Unfortunately, we have breaking news, and it is not great news for especially one young man, and that is Jordan Travis. As it has come out, and Jordan Travis and his team have released on his social media that he is medically retiring from the game of football. Again, this just came out moments ago. Adam Schefter has tweeted this, and of course, Jordan Travis has released the following statement on his Twitter page. I'm going to read the entire thing. Again, this was in his own handwritten words. So this is Jordan Travis's statement. As I reflect on my journey, I am overwhelmed with gratitude from having the opportunity to live out my dream at Florida State University to hearing my name called in the NFL draft. I am incredibly thankful for everyone who has poured into me throughout my life and career. To my family and friends, your unwavering support has meant everything to me. To the coaches who believed in me and gave me a chance to play the game I love, thank you. To my teammates, thank you for pushing me, supporting me, and becoming family. I am forever grateful for the locker room memories and the brotherhood we built. To the entire New York Jets organization, thank you for believing in me and providing me with the opportunity to live out the ultimate dream. On November 18th, 2023, my life and career took an unexpected turn. I gave everything I had to the rehab process, but despite my efforts, my leg never responded the way we hoped. After much prayer and consultation with my doctors and medical team, I have been medically advised to retire from the game that I love so deeply. It is crazy how fast life can change. This is not the ending I have ever imagined, but I do trust the Lord's plan above all else. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Proverbs 19:21. Thank you to everyone who's been a part of the ride. With love and sincere gratitude, Jordan Travis, number 13. So this is a rough thing to hear because Jordan Travis, I think a lot of Jet fans were really rooting for this kid because you saw what he went through. I think we all saw the injury and how that basically impacted the Florida State program, a program that had national championship hopes that were dashed with a gruesome injury. And unfortunately, this is a reminder of how gruesome and unforgiving football can be. One moment you are playing a game that you're enjoying, you're playing a game that you're great at, and a game that might be able to take care of you and your family for the rest of your life. And then out of nowhere, reality hits you. And unfortunately for Jordan Travis, this is a devastating blow. We wish him the best of luck in his future career. Now, again, I think Jordan Travis could be a great head coach. Maybe he goes and becomes an offensive coordinator. I'm sure Florida State would welcome back with open arms to be a part of that coaching staff. Maybe he looks to go to the booth, or maybe he just changes careers entirely. But as we ran the statement, it is clear that he tried to rehab. The Jets took a flyer on him to rehab. Again, I think a lot of us Jet fans were all for that. We saw the talent at Florida State. But I've always had a little bit of pause on this channel about Jordan Travis. And I understand the hype that Jet fans had around him because you saw him play at the college level. You saw the ability and the passion that he brought to the game. And I think there was a level of excitement that if he could even bring a little bit of that here. And of course, whenever you draft a quarterback on day 3, everyone has the dreams that they found the next Tom Brady, they found the next Russell Wilson, the next diamond in the rough that no one else did. And again, Jets, with the luck at the quarterback position, maybe this was going to be what many Jet fans thought was the exorcism to that curse, was finally finding someone late in the draft that could turn around. Now, with Jordan Travis, I've always been someone that's been optimistic, but I've also been very honest on this channel. I even said it in the last episode. For those because I remember it was coming up after the draft when they didn't draft a quarterback and they only got to an undrafted free agent. I remember a lot of Jordan Travis, and I said on the channel, look, guys, as much as I want to hope for Jordan Travis, until I see him out there physically playing in a game, I don't consider him a part of the New York Jets because, unfortunately, we don't know the state of his injury. And the way Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji talked about it this offseason, it didn't seem like he was part of the long-term plans. Now, again, I know some are going to speculate that Travis wanted a way out. There was obviously a bit of disconnect between him and the previous staff with his rehab. But to me, I think kind of the Jets had an idea that this probably was coming down the pike. And again, I don't think that Muji and I don't think Aaron Glenn just wanted to outright say, yeah, we don't think he's ever going to play again. But we'll have to see. I'm very curious to see how Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji respond in their next press conference because they're going to be asked about the question. I'm guessing they're not going to reveal much. Maybe they'll talk about how great of a person Jordan Travis is to the building. It's obvious seeing his teammates coming out and supporting him on social media, how much of a presence he had in that locker room. So, but again, this is just incredibly frustrating for a player that when we were looking at in November 13th, when that injury happened, before that, we were thinking this could be a guy that if he plays well and gets them far in the playoffs, maybe this is a guy we could hear his name called on round one. I didn't think he'd be an early first rounder. I thought maybe a late trade in first rounder, but it's unfortunate what happened with that injury. I think the Jets gave it everything they had to make it work. And I think Jordan Travis has just realized it's not in the cards for him. And like he said in his statement, the leg hasn't responded the way he had hoped. Again, it was an incredibly gruesome injury. And even the closest injury, and I know this isn't a perfect example because he also had so many setbacks with different setbacks, but it reminded me a lot of the Alex Smith injury. Now, again, Alex Smith basically had to play with a steel rod. And it's like, again, this is the closest I can think of. But when you see a leg injury that severe, even when players come back from that injury, they are not the same player. It is very rare to see someone with that kind of a devastating injury come back with the same ability, the same mobility that they had. And unfortunately, it's tough because I think Jordan Travis, this was a guy that Jet fans, I think, have hyped up a lot. This is someone that they've talked a lot about. And, I heard the whole offseason, hopefully Jordan Travis can get reps. Hopefully Jordan Travis can be this great player for us. Hopefully Jordan Travis can become a backup for this team. And I get where Jet fans were coming from. I was one of them. I felt his ceiling could be a very reliable backup in this league. I think some people thought he could be the eventual starting quarterback. But I said, let's see him play. Let's actually see him on a football field. Let's see his mobility. Let's see him, because I think it's the enigma. Because we've also haven't seen Jordan Travis really do any workout publicly since that injury. Like, he's been pretty much behind a lot of closed doors with the Jets. You maybe see him on the practice fields throwing on the side, but that's the extent of it. You haven't seen him taking practice reps. You haven't seen him really in preseason games. Basically, he was the great unknown. And unfortunately, I think it will be one of those unknowns that we're never going to get the answer to, because unfortunately, this young man has to retire. I'm hoping for the best for him and his family. And again, it has to be an incredibly frustrating and incredibly devastating day. Melvin, that statement is heartbreaking. It absolutely is. Tony Alexo sending his wishes to Jordan Travis as well. Look, I don't, again, with Sanders, I'll keep it short. I don't think they wanted the noise in the building, especially this first year. Was supposed to practice somewhat last season, never did. Released a statement about setback, moved, refused to discuss his health. Ryan was on the wall. My heart goes out to him. Such a tough blow. And again, this will this always will be the interesting question. Right now, it is Taylor, Martinez, and Cook. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons this team signed Cook in the undrafted free agency pool. I think in a perfect world, they're hoping more for a Cam Miller to get there, but they ended up with Brady Cook. And again, this is a kid that they've gotten a lot of film on, especially studying Armand Membu at Missouri. Again, fits the bill, a little bit older for prospect, 6'2", 215, 5-year senior. And look, he he's a 3-year captain. He became the starter as a sophomore, was a 26-12, 38 career starts. And that's something that I think you have to look at and really appreciate, especially in college football. Starting that many games, being that successful. It's very difficult to get those snaps. Especially now at the transfer portal. But again, I do think Cook is an intriguing camp arm. I think he can push to be the third quarterback. And I think what you hope is maybe becomes this team's backup. I think that's the ceiling. And again, it's good to have a good backup in this league. You're one injury away from your potential season being over. So again, I think having Cook, if he becomes this team's backup for 5 to 7 years, again, that's pretty good. He's not the biggest athlete, but he can move around with his legs. He can get positive yards. They had him do a lot of option design runs in Missouri. So again, he's not unathletic. I think he can run similar to what they're going to try to do in the system. He's got decent arm talent, but the problem is he can get a little bit of himself, doesn't set his base, and needs to work on his accuracy. And again, the big thing too is this is a kid that when he gets under pressure, he can panic, make some bad decision making. But he's got functional athleticism. He's got the arm enough to be a professional quarterback. So a lot of it's going to come to ball placement. And this is a great system because he's not going to be pressured to get on the field this year. Maybe this is kind of a redshirt year, practice squad year, and this could be a long-term backup for the Jets. That's how I look at this undrafted quarterback. Again, I understand people are like, oh, we need the franchise quarterback. I think they're hoping Justin Fields becomes that. Now, looking back, do you think the Jets should have maybe taken a quarterback? Maybe on day 3. I know a lot of people want to see Jordan Travis. I think that was the other thing. I think a lot of people, especially people that are Florida State fans, were just hoping to see this kid on the football field, just to see him get an opportunity to actually play in the National Football League. And unfortunately, Kev, that is a great question because I don't think outside of practice, I don't think he's ever suited up for a game. I really don't think he's ever actually been in a Jets uniform outside of a practice one. So I do think it's a good one. But look, he's going to compete with Martinez. Martinez made a couple splash plays last year in camp. Fields, and Tyrod's not going to get a ton of snaps in the preseason. They're going to try to keep him healthy. Fields might get a couple series or two. But, let's look. For 3 preseason games, we're going to see a lot of Martinez and Cook. And whichever one impresses more, now there's a chance both are on the roster as practice squad players. Again, I don't think the Jets are going to carry 3 quarterbacks on game day. They're only going to carry the 2 because they're probably going to want to carry an extra offensive lineman, extra running back. But, look, now you wonder, too, do the Jets maybe look at a little bit of free agency? But the big thing, too, is I'm very curious to see how the Jets really address the rest of this free agency period. I will say I don't think the Jets should have been surprised that this was an option. I kind of get the feeling that the writing was on the wall, and I kind of think that Travis waits till after the draft maybe. I would love to be a fly on the wall and see when he decided to do this or when he was officially advised. For all we know, the medicals finally came back today, and he just said, okay, it's my time to move on. And look, I see a lot of debate here. Let's see. And Rico brings up a good point. Hate to break it to you guys, but Fields and Tyra got hurt. No, none of the guys the Jets are in serious consideration for drafting would be saving us, and they were never drafting Sanders. Look, let's get to Sanders really quick. Sanders, again, talent-wise, should the Jets have maybe taken a flyer on him? Sure. But the Jets have laid out their plan. The Jets are going to go with Justin Fields this year. I think their hope is he's a top 15 quarterback in this league. If he's a top 15 quarterback, they don't have to be desperate in next year's draft. If he isn't, then they get a quarterback next year. The biggest thing with Sanders and the Jets are, the biggest problem I had is the Jets went through 2 years, more than 2 years, with Aaron Rodgers. Now, again, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the pull of Shedeur Sanders, but do you not think if Shedeur Sanders was in New York, there'd be constant talking points? If Justin Fields had a rough game, You don't think that they're interviewing Deion out in Colorado and asking, and Deion's basically saying that he should be the starter. I think the Jets, right or wrong, and again, if he turns out to be a good quarterback for the Browns, we can eat the crow. But unfortunately with the Jets, I think two things. I don't think he was a fit for the system that they're trying to run. They clearly want a more athletic quarterback for the time being. And the other thing, too, is I just don't think they wanted the noise. They wanted to build this program. They want to get the right guys into the system, and they want to get guys that are bought into Aaron Glenn. And it's awfully hard also to try to build a team around Justin Fields this year, even if you don't believe in Justin Fields. But it's awfully hard when those press doors open, and instead of rushing to Justin Fields, who's supposed to be your team leader, the media is going to run over to Shedur's locker and ask him, like, did you hear what your dad said? Did you hear what do you think you should be the starter? What are you learning? When do you think you're ready? And look, next year's draft class is a lot better. I mean, look, Sanders is, he is he's someone that I can see playing in the National Football League. Do I think he's going to be an elite starter? No. Do I think he could eventually develop into a decent starter? Sure. But the big thing I look at is the Jets just don't want noise. Like this draft, I kept saying, and I think that's why a lot of Jet fans are disappointed, this wasn't a sexy draft. The Jets could have gotten the headlines with Tyler Warren. They could have gotten the headlines with the sexy receiver, but they didn't. They went with offensive line, tight end, and cornerback. And to me, that's a big thing too, because it's also this team wasn't desperate to get a quarterback. And as much as the Giants keep telling me they love Jackson Dart, they fell in love with Jackson Dart. They really love Jackson Dart that much, they would have taken him at 3 and not chanced him to be there in the late 20s. But next year's quarterback class definitely will be a lot deeper. Spin Max. Again, Super Chat jumped to the front of the line. If you also want to donate to the channel, we greatly appreciate that. And you trade up for Jalen Keith 2.0. I mean, that's not a bad one. That's a good comment. If you were putting up with Rodgers, Diva add to you were going to do with a rookie quarterback with nowhere near the talent. Look, Rodgers, that's the thing. Rodgers had the talent, but I keep saying this. Like, the other big thing too, and this is a good thing I really believe for the Jets. The Jet fan base has a fear that Woody Johnson melts, and we've seen him melt from time to time. But I think the biggest fear for this fan base was with this new regime, would Woody be meddling? Would he be meddling? And I'll tell you this. If Woody was meddling, and we know how much he loves the back page and the attention on the Jets and the good news stories about the Jets, you don't think he would have intervened like they did in Cleveland and told his organization to draft the quarterback? And now there's a rift in Cleveland. Think about this. Never forget when the Browns not only drafted Sanders, but traded up. Basically, the Browns, you look at the only one that looks somewhat happy is the owner. The head coach and GM look pissed. They look like we were just told to do this and we have to do it because we want to keep our jobs. But now there's also a divide too, because I guarantee you since round 2, that owner was asking his front office and asking his coach and asking his GM to draft Sanders. They caved in the 3rd round and drafted the quarterback from Oregon because they're like, okay, we drafted our quarterback, the guy we really like, so we're done with the quarterback. We don't need to draft one. And then finally in the 5th round, oh, come on, guys, this would be great. Think about that. If you're Kevin Stefanski, how much power do you have with the Browns now? If you're a Browns fan, your question now, how much is the owner meddling? How much power does Stefanski have? And how much power does my GM have? Because if Joe Flacco gets hurt or struggles, who's the first rookie in? And if it's Shedur, is it because he's truly the best quarterback there? Or is it because the owner's basically telling Stefanski, put him in there? We need the publicity. Again, never forget, this is the same organization that drafted Johnny Manziel because of the hype, because of the intrigue, because of the flashiness, because of how it would generate headlines. If anything, I'm glad the Jets didn't do it because it shows me that Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are in charge, and they said he's not good enough. He's not worth the headache. He's not worth the noise. where you look right now with the Browns, it is so crazy right now. Think about that. You draft 2 quarterbacks. Your front office gave the owner the plan. Here's the plan. We're passing on a generational talent and Travis Hunter to go back to 5. So we get a first rounder and next year's incredibly loaded quarterback class. And instead, it felt like the 2 picks in this draft for quarterbacks, when outside of that, I thought the Browns had a good draft. And I kept saying the plan should be build for next year, build an incredible roster. So the missing piece next year is a quarterback. But instead, it felt like Doug Gabriel was a pick that was done to get the owners off the head coaching staff and off of Stefanski, basically saying, hey, guys, I really want you to draft Sanders. Well, we really think he fits our system, so we're going to take him here in the 3rd round. I mean, come on. Now we trade for Kenny Pickett. We already gave up a draft pick for him, so we've already used 2 draft picks on quarterbacks. We got Doug Gabriel. We just signed Joe Flacco. I mean, look, our quarterback room. Whoo, even without Watson, it's 3 people deep right now, so we're not going to do anything else. But instead, they go back and get Sanders in the late round. Because, again, it's flashy because the Browns are on ESPN on Monday and everyone's talking about how they drafted him. But that seems like an organization that is not a cohesive unit. One thing is the Jets, at least for the time being, seem like a cohesive unit. Again, I think Pickett is definitely in play there. But that's the other problem now. So if Pickett gets the snaps, because I don't think Flacco's going to take a snap in the preseason, how do you divide the snaps? And all training camp. And please, NFL, please for us, please put the Browns on Hard Knocks. Please give us what we deserve as fans, because we deserve that. Can you imagine the fight for snaps? And you don't think the Browns media is going to have like a little pitch counter, like taking clicks? How many snaps does Gabriel get? Click, 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 click. Okay, he got 8. All right, Sanders is in. Click, click, click. Oh, Sanders only got 5. And then you can just see the headline. Gabriel out snapping Sanders. Shows what the coaching staff, they don't think he's good enough. Like, the amount of noise that's going to be around Cleveland this year is going to be fascinating. And here's the other thing. I don't think they have the quarterbacks to compete in that division. So let's see some of the other ones. Putting words in our mouth. Nobody's saying splashy, just competent. No DT in the deep DT class. Yeah, the D tackle one is still a very important one. I do think. Sorry, my bad. I do think that we'll have to see with the D tackle one. I wasn't a big fan of passing on the D tackles, but again, do you like Leonard Taylor the third more? We don't know. Yeah, I think that the Browns, if they were smart, would do that. They'd hold Pickett, trade him for an asset. But then the other part, too, is he the buffer, like on that team, where if the owner really wants Sanders, well, we can't because Kenny's there and Kenny's knows the playbook better. He's got more experience. Like, again, like I understand the idea, Melvin, but to me, it just feels like Kenny Pickett's now kind of a buffer there to keep like Sanders from really getting close to the field. Because then if Sanders becomes the number 2, or it's Gabriel and basically, Sanders 2 and 3, and Flacco struggling, or the Browns are 3 and 5, that's going to get a lot of push. That'd be a lot of push. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they won a couple. They got the kid from Clemson. They got the kid from Michigan. They have some intriguing players. And look, defensive tackles, when you look at certain positions, defensive tackles you can find on waiver wires. I mean, again, John Franklin Myers is a great example. Waiver wire claim for the Jets. So, again, we see D tackles get cut off different rosters. I do think the Jets are going to add another DT. I don't know when that's going to be. But I do feel like the Jets, even in the undrafted, did a pretty good job as well. Yeah, Olberg, that's a good one. Yeah, Olberg got fined a lot, but God, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that house. Like, can you imagine Olberg? And again, I know NFL coordinators get paid well, but he gets that fine. And don't forget, his son's in college. He's like, I just basically paid 2 college tuitions for you. Like, I mean, the NFL also has got to do a better job of keeping stuff together. Although now I kind of wonder, with all the leaks from the Jets, how much did Ulbrich leak, or how much did Jets' secrets got exposed because he can't close his laptop? It's like, but look, my biggest thing, and I'll just sum that up too. Everyone that keeps saying he's a kid, kids make mistakes. Look, people make mistakes, but when you're 21, I mean, it was a mistake getting the number. It was a mistake then giving it to your friend. It was a mistake then, after all of that, to say, you know what, make this even better. Let's record this so there is evidence of this happen. Now, again, I think there's going to be major policy changes with the draft next year, because we've heard about even Abdul Carter got a prank call from the second pick when again, Jacksonville traded up. I mean, someone prank called him saying that the Jaguars were coming to get him. So I think that the NFL needs to do a better job with the phones. Again, we know the league sends those phones individually to the people. I almost think like you don't give out the numbers to the prospects or to that phone. Like, there should almost be 2 phones. There should be an off-season phone where basically the teams, like if they want to conduct their meetings or their general talks, have a phone. But then I would also do a second burner phone for just the night of the draft. And literally, like, those phones go out the day before, and you have a 24-hour window, and you get the numbers 24 hours. And the only way you can access it is when you are in your team's respective war room. That's the only way you can access that number. That's the only place you can get access to it. Again, we'll see what the NFL does, but that's just what I could look to do. Yeah. If I was, Daddy, no. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think there should. But again, who do you give the comp pick to? You don't get the Browns get a comp pick. I mean, I would maybe take a pick away from them, but I mean that should be looked into as well. I don't want to know what it was for. I really don't want to know. It's like the sausage principle. I just don't want to know. Stories will always be remembered for those days in call. Whole event had to be traumatizing. He won't show it though. Look, the whole Shedeur Sanders thing, and again, I love how we got off the Jordan Travis train. Look, the big thing with Sanders, and these are my final thoughts, there's not one simple answer to this whole situation, to how this whole thing ended. I think it was a classic case of, we looked early. There was a weak quarterback class. They thought because it was a weak quarterback class, people would have a higher grade on him. I think that they mishandled the pre-draft process. And I think if you could do it over again, I think the Sanders camp should have gone an agent and not represented themselves. Because an agent's job is to be the middleman between the 32 teams and be the middleman for those players. And remember earlier where Deion was going on radio and saying there's certain places he wouldn't let his son play. And look, I get it. As a father, you want to put your son in the best position to succeed. There's organizations you're worried about. I get it, including, ironically, Cleveland, who he tweeted in 2018 is the place where quarterbacks go to die. But anyways, staying on track. The big thing is, I think an agent would have helped the Sanders camp understand early in the process, hey guys, the way you're coming off is not looking good. And I'm just letting you know now, many teams, the way they're grading you as a high second round player, which means if you don't go within the first 40 picks, you're probably going to fall in this draft. So you have to come off, especially if you're viewing you more as a backup talent, that you are not going to be a distraction. Because, and again, this probably would have been possible to convey because of, the whole Sanders camp. But I do think a lot of teams didn't view him as a starting caliber quarterback, maybe someone that could be a starter. But once we got into the second round, you saw the guys people want as backups. They want guys that had traits but seemed to be more coachable, guys that wouldn't take a lot of the spotlight. And unfortunately, with Sanders, one of the biggest things for him became one of his biggest detriments. His dad put him in a position where he could get drafted. I mean, we have to remember, this is a kid that started Jackson State, worked his way up to Colorado, and got basically national attention thanks in part to his father. And his dad did a lot to put him on the NFL's radar. I think that a lot of missteps from both sides over the especially not having an agent during the process, really hurt that camp. Like, they almost needed an outside voice to be like, hey guys, like, this is what you think is happening versus what is actually happening. Because the Sanders probably thought, within reason, because they keep seeing people mock drafting, the Giants could take him as high as 3. It's like, wow, okay, he's a top 10 pick. And because we think he's a top 10 pick, he's not going to go to all these interviews. He's not going to do all these workouts. Like, he's going to protect himself because he doesn't want to hurt his stock as a top 10 pick. The problem is they didn't have someone around the league saying, yeah, guys, that's not what they're saying. Like, I can tell you the Giants are not going to take him in the top 10. There's not going to be a team that takes him in the top 15. Realistically, we're looking at best a team kind of coming back at the back end of the first round or coming up in the second. That's how we look for. Let's see. I know how Kev feels about a certain subject. Comparing the Sanders to the Mangs is diabolical. I was looking forward to Cook versus Travis fight for QB3. If you ask me, Cook reminds me of Tony Romo, guy had a down year last year. Look, Cook to me is someone that, again, I like the measurables. He's got the size to really kind of play in this league. Again, efficient as a starter, 26-12. And look, I feel like the best thing is he's going to be a guy that basically blends in, and he's going to be a backup. And I think he's going to push. But I do know if he throws a touchdown pass in the first preseason game, people are going to be saying, oh my God, like, he looks great. Like, let's just see if he can push to be the number 3 quarterback. And if by next year, if he's still on the team in 2026 and he's pushing to be the backup and he becomes the backup quarterback and is a solid backup, that's more than you can ask for. Yeah, Chase Long, I feel bad again. Kid from UConn, 5 times. No, it was technical. I don't know how you look at it. Like, in terms of where I think people thought, no, but Lund also went in the 6th round. I thought he could go as high as the 3rd round. So that was definitely one of those things too. And look, I do think, especially if you're intrigued. So let's see. Rico was that pranked him. Yeah, 5 times. It was a lot. But look, I do think that it's frustrating with Jordan Travis. Again, I think this was someone that was easy to root for. It was someone that was working hard. And like it said in his statement, his life changed that day. And it shows you how precious life is, and also shows you how much your life can change in the blink of an eye. Because when he walked into that stadium that day, I think a lot of us were looking at each other saying, this could be someone that could maybe play in the NFL. Maybe this is someone that could lead a team. He's a leader. People love to rally around him. And this could be a team that could win a national championship potentially. And instead, you look what happens. And unfortunately, the Jets took a flyer on him in the 5th round. I believe it was 5th I'm pretty sure it was the 5th round in the draft. Gave an opportunity. I think people were hoping that the leg would respond better, that the leg would be able to heal itself. And look, I maintained on this channel, look, as much as I'm hoping Jordan Travis can be good for this team, my ceiling is a backup quarterback. If he becomes a good backup, that's great. But I also need to see him play. I need to see him on the field. I mean, we've seen more of Adrian Martinez on a football field than we have of Jordan Travis. And unfortunately, we're not going to see any more. And it's frustrating because these kids work so hard. You see how much they put into this game, how much passion, how much love. and not even getting really a fair crack at it. Look, Jordan Travis, with that injury, had the deck stack against him. It's great that he got his name called on draft night. It's great that he got an opportunity to be in an NFL facility, got to work with an NFL team. You just wish like he could have at least gone onto the field even in the preseason just to have that experience, be able to show what he could potentially do. But unfortunately, when you look at this whole situation, I think the Jets have, handled this well as well. Again, I do think that with Jordan Travis, this is just a great example. And I think this is a good time for self-reflection for everyone on this channel and for the viewers. And again, it shows you how precious life is, because all it takes is one split second and life can be dramatically differently. And maybe it was fate. Maybe Jordan Travis wasn't supposed to be an NFL player, but maybe his purpose is being a great NFL offensive coordinator eventually. Maybe he becomes a great quarterback coach. Maybe he becomes a college coach. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he sticks around the Jets this year as a member of the staff, for all we know. Maybe he could be working out in the quarterback room. Maybe they have him breaking down quarterback film. It's unfortunately his career won't be on a football field, but it could certainly be around it. So we'll see what his next steps in life are. Again, we'll definitely keep tabs, wishing him the best of luck going forward, because again, it's very difficult. It reminds me years ago of Cameron Clark, the interior offensive lineman from the Joe Douglas draft. And he was a kid I really liked. I thought he could be a very good backup for this team. And it was unfortunate because I remember he had that neck injury that cost him his career in training camp. But it does remind you that this is definitely and again, I keep it simple. The most specific he gave was he didn't talk about the setback, just that he had one, and that basically he's been getting testing with his doctors. The leg hasn't responded the way he would hope, and unfortunately, him and his team have decided that he cannot medically play football. That they've advised him that he shouldn't be playing. It's just one of those things too. Like, I get, and I know a lot of the talking points, because again, this is a football show and we break down the teams. Again, for the Jet fans and this community, we understand that the next step is, well, what's next? And look, do I think they'll keep an eye on a Trubisky or Dalton or Garoppolo? Sure. I feel the Jets are going to go in with Tyrod and Fields, and they're going to have Martinez compete for that last spot with Cook. So I think Cook can definitely be someone. Now, again, good news is the Jets have a lot of film because they watched a lot of Armand Membu tape. So I'm curious to see. Now, again, one of the kids I really wanted was Mac Miller. I was hoping he'd go undrafted from North Dakota. He went in the 6th round. I mean, I know Kyle McCord people who really wanted Kyle McCord today are going to go, well, there is a missed opportunity. Again, this is still early in the process, but it seems like the Jets and Travis are leaving on good terms. Again, this is just the beginning of the story. I mean, the statement's basically been out for just about an hour now. So I'm very curious to see what other news comes potentially out of this. I know the big news today was Jermaine. Jermaine got the 5th-year extension. So that will that to me was going to be the big story. But when you look, again, he thanked the Jets. Thank you for believing in me, providing me the opportunity to live out the ultimate dream. And look, if Travis is frustrated with the Jets and that former staff is unfortunately gone, maybe he will call out Robert Saleh. Maybe he'll call out Nathaniel Hackett eventually. But my big thing too is I know a lot of people today are going to go and say, wait a minute. So you're telling me the Jets had this on their radar and they didn't draft a quarterback in this year's draft? Look, when Connor Hughes reporting, Jets believe Travis could have been a 2nd, 3rd round pick had he stayed healthy, noteworthy, in a very good quarterback class prospect-wise, was worth a gamble in the 5th. So look, I think it was a good gamble too. They took a bet on him. They looked at the spot. And again, day 3, you're drafting intangibles. And where the Jets were, again, the Jets didn't have like 12 picks in this draft. The Jets had 8, they turned into 7. I think the biggest thing was they are looking to build out this roster first. And then if anything, if Justin Fields doesn't work out, they're going to build out this roster. And again, as much as I know a lot of people were hoping they draft a quarterback, I do think that they looked in and says, look, there's not a quarterback in this class that we feel is going to be better than a backup here on day 3. So why would we use a pick there where we have our starter, we have our backup, we'll go the undrafted, we'll get someone to compete with Martinez for the 3rd spot. And I understand people are frustrated, but this quarterback class wasn't great. And people told you, because how many times were teams that could have used quarterbacks on the board and they didn't draft one? I mean, you had 2 quarterbacks selected the first night. You had 1 quarterback selected in the 2nd round. You had 1 quarterback selected in the 3rd round. That one seems like it was selected out of spite to the owner that was constantly pestering the staff to draft Shedeur Sanders, which they eventually would do anyways. And then you saw a run, actually 2, because Jalen Milroe went the 3rd round. So 5 quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds. And then you saw kind of a gap. And then you saw the run at the end of 6 rounds. Like, okay, guys that we hope can compete the back end of camp, maybe make the roster, maybe eventually become our backup quarterback. I think the Jets looked at it and said, look, we have so many holes on this roster. I mean, they didn't fill them all. I mean, look, we can gripe about the defensive tackle position. If they had another pick, they probably would pick the defensive tackle. I mean, we still come out of this draft, even though I think they had a good draft, we're still looking at, well, they still have a need at receiver. They still need a defensive tackle. It wasn't a perfect draft. And even if the Jets had more picks, I don't think they would have taken a quarterback. I think they would have addressed those other positions. But that's what I think. I wanted Will Howard. Well, next year draft introduced a bunch of good ones. Last year, I felt like a poor payback for the Bills trading up for the Jets several times earlier. Yeah, the 3rd round pick, again, I still think was a good pick. The Arian Smith one is the most divisive one. It's funny because the way I look at the Arian Smith pick, if they had drafted him 1 round later and moved it around, like let's say they drafted Moore just straight up with that pick, the safety, and let's say they kept even the same exact players, but then in the 5th round they took the wide receiver. I think like in a way people would have been a little bit more on board with that. But look, the Jets, if they have a plan to use him from day 1, that's great. I know he doesn't have a huge route tree right now. Runs 9-7 routes, needs to improve on that. But look, this is a intriguing day for the Jets because I think there was a lot of people, again, when you are a team that doesn't have a quarterback, you're always hoping that one day the football gods will give you a gift. And I think some people thought this could have been that potentially. A 2nd, 3rd round talent. They're in round 5. Jets could maybe rehab him. He gets an opportunity to play. And I thought at the very least Jordan Travis, if healthy, could have been a decent backup for this team. So it's frustrating, but the one thing is that we can say from this is at least now we have clarity. We now know that there's not going to be a question about Jordan Travis this season. Unfortunately, we have the answer. And it's not the answer that none of us want, but we have an answer. We know the path going forward. We know his path no longer includes playing football, and we know that the Jets as an organization's path no longer includes Jordan Travis in their long-term plans. And it's frustrating because I think this was a likable kid, a kid that had so much promise, and just the way his football career, you were kind of hoping he'd get another shot because he didn't get a chance to finish the story at FSU. But unfortunately, Jordan Travis will not be a member of the Jets going forward, medically retiring again. Heartbreaking statement today. Again, thank the Jets for giving him the opportunity. I mean, this is if there's a silver lining in this whole story is at least Jordan Travis got to hear his name picked on draft night, because there was a good chance that Jordan Travis could have easily gone undrafted with that injury. But look, the Jets said, look, we'll give this kid a shot. We'll give him an opportunity. We'll basically treat it like a redshirt year. He can sit on the bench in his recovery. And it's clear that recovery didn't go well. I hope for his sake that with his legs at least in a healthy enough position where he can have a very functional and healthy lifestyle, where he can still have an enjoyable lifestyle. And I think he just looked and says, look, if I'm going to be a sitting duck on the football field, or I'm not going to have that mobility that I need to survive out there, because again, he's a smaller quarterback. He's like, I'm going to get killed out there if I can't move around, if I can't plant, or if I can't be as dynamic as I was. I mean, he could still, I'm just hoping he has the ability to have a normal life. And I'm very curious to see what Jordan Travis's next path in life is. But unfortunately, it will not be as a member of the New York Jets. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on the live stream. Again, we will be bringing you more breaking news for the New York Jets as the offseason progresses, including some fun videos about the history of the Jets, so that we can give you a wide range of Jets topics throughout the offseason. And of course, we have other videos coming to the channel as well. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining us during the live stream. Give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss the latest content, and also to help us with that Jet algorithm to get more Jets fans over to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us here. We'll see you next time on Rich Sports Talk.